We are now live on YouTube. Please note that all councillors confirm to the closed session statements. Chair McPherson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. I have a motion moved by Councillor Mikulik that council resume an open session. I will ask the Deputy Clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you. Please unmute your mic as I call out your name. Councillor Brunet.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik.
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Rinjma.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
Yes.
Councillor Timmers.
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Yes.
And that is carried.
Good. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell that council receive for information a verbal update from legal counsel as it pertains to Blizzard Drive. Madam Deputy Clerk, do you have an add to that?
I do. And that the CAO and town solicitor proceed as directed by council in closed session.
Very good. I will now ask the Deputy Clerk to call out the vote. Trish, go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Brunet.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik.
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Rinjma.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
Yes.
Councillor Timmers.
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Support.
And that is carried.
We have now concluded the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda. We will now rotate to allow Chair Rajima to assume the chair this time for the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda. Councillor, take it away.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. We have no delegations this evening for the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee. So we will move right on to the consent agenda, which includes the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee minutes from March 5th of 2020. Would any member like to remove this item from the consent agenda to discuss? I don't see anybody with their hand up, so there being no one, I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell to pass item 7.2 on the consent agenda. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you. Please unmute your mics. Councillor Brunet.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik.
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Njima.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
Yes.
Councillor Timmers.
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Yes.
And that is carried.
Thank you, Trish. Next on the agenda is reports. Item 7.3, which is a report PW 15-20, a purchase of one tandem axle and two single axle dump plow trucks. I believe our CAO wanted to comment on this. Do I have that right?
Through you, Madam Chair, I will let both Ian and Dave Graham speak to this. But I did send council an email earlier and spoke to a few about the fact that this was a purchase that occurred with all three West Niagara municipalities in terms of a shared procurement, shared service approach to the purchase of this vehicle. But I know Mr. Tasker will mention that in his comments.
Okay, thank you. So I'll turn this over now to Mr. Tasker.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say that this was a joint effort between Grimsby and West Lincoln. We were all able to sort of standardize our specifications and wants and needs so that we could get some, try to get some savings through quantities of scale and, you know, hopefully in the future further standardize our equipment so that we can you know, take more advantage of that and also be able to share parts and share experiences amongst the the three municipalities that were involved in it. So it was a good experience. It was a lot of work to get things organized for the first round, but I'm hopeful that we can use this document going forward, and it'll be much smoother and time savings and all that good stuff that comes from joint tendering.
Thank you. Appreciated and agreed. Do members of council have any questions or comments? Councillor McPherson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so to that, reading through the report, it talked about the benefits of joint tendering and, setting, exchanging ideas, techniques, experiences, but I didn't read if there was an actual savings in the tender. The $168,900 purchase price. Could Mr. Tasker speak to whether there was in fact savings that was realized here?
Mr. Tasker, are you the appropriate person to answer that question? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I can answer that through you, Madam Chair. There was a savings. It's difficult to show in the document. We allowed the opportunity for bidders to bid just to supply single municipalities rather than go with the joint tendering. The low bidder didn't take advantage of that and just spread the savings across. But the price that we received was almost identical to the last vehicle we bought that was tendered in early 2019. So it's I would estimate it a 3 to 5% savings just on inflation alone, and the general increase we've seen in vehicles over the past year and a half with all the uncertainty with trade and whatnot. So I think a conservative estimate would be 3% and probably a 5% savings. And as we standardize things more in the future, I would expect that to increase as well.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, just to follow up. So just for clarity, did Grimsby and West Lincoln also put bids in for trucks with this bid, or were we alone?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, they will be participating in this bid, both of them. So their intent was to award the same as our recommendation.
So I'm not really sure I'm clear on how this worked. So was it and just so I understand, I mean, I think it's great that we're working with other municipalities, but I'm just trying to understand the mechanics of if we're got together and set specifications and that was helping us to realize a savings, that's great. But as I'm understanding why we're driving towards working with other municipalities is to, from an economies of scale standpoint, these trucks would normally cost 1.2 million, but with the bid of 2 from us, 2 from Grimsby, 1 from West Lincoln, we got it down to 998,000. So as I'm listening to you speak, it really wasn't that.
Yeah, it's not a complete apples to apples comparison, and the savings is in the, not to get too specific, but the savings is in the truck chassis because they're identical amongst the municipalities.
Okay.
And then each municipality specifies their own winter maintenance or maintenance equipment that's attached to that chassis. So there is more savings to be had if we can further standardize things so that the manufacturer can set up a bit of an assembly process to streamline things. But the savings we did realize that 3 to 5% I'm estimating is mainly in the chassis portion of it, and as we go further and try to standardize things that we get in the winter maintenance side, we should see some more savings out of that just from that scaling up of manufacturing is our hope.
And through you, Madam Chair, that is a great story. And I think it's one that we want to see in the report, that there was a savings based on chassis, and our estimation is that even it's an estimation, but that's the type of thing that I think really helps us to sell the fact that, first of all, we're working with our other communities, and we're trying to drive cost out of these purchases. So I'd say for the next one, throw something in that your estimation of what the actual cost savings was. Madam Chair, I do have a question, another question. It's with regards to the flexibility of this unit. So we've got a unit now that will, in the words of the report, will do the work of 3 separate units and will provide additional flexibility for operations. And I guess my question then is, how does that help us down the line to potentially eliminate units from the fleet? So that if you've got a unit that will do multiple things, are there plans down the road to have, through the life expectancy of these vehicles, once they're done, we don't need that vehicle because this vehicle will now do these 3 things? Is that a fair question?
I believe so, Councillor. Who would be best to answer that question? I see that Terry Truwala has her hand up. Terry, is this something you want
No.
to? No?
I can
Oh,
answer
sorry,
that
you're
too.
muted.
No, not
Oh,
about that one, sorry.
okay, so I'll go to you after this, okay? Okay, Mr. Tasker?
Okay, yeah, through you, Madam Chair. It's more about it's in the future when it's positioning us more for growth. And, all these units, all 3 of them that we're purchasing are tailored for a specific role as much as possible. But the unit you're speaking of, the roll-off one, it is a multi-function vehicle that functions better in all 3 roles. The actual
You
summer
bring
maintenance.
one of those coils here.
The summer maintenance,
Somebody
the winter
is
maintenance.
not muted.
There we
So, okay, there we go.
Yeah, so the unit you're talking about will function in the summer, and it performs a dual role in the winter of standard plow, sander, and liquid spreader that really helps all the units maximize their efficiency when they're out doing winter maintenance. So it's more positioning us for growth and not having to add to the fleet rather than remove pieces we have from the fleet right now.
That is a very good answer, and yeah, we'll look for that when we are growing and we're going to budget and seeing what we see, that we're able to accommodate the growth with the units that we've purchased because of their flexibility. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to go to Terry next.
Thank you, Chair. And so through the chair, I actually wanted to refer back to Councillor McPherson's question earlier about the procurement of it and the benefits to it. So our procurement agent actually took the lead in January to reach out to all of our municipal neighbors to see if they were looking to procure similar types of vehicles. As the report mentions, we had tried it before and it didn't quite work out as well as we'd like. So this time we took the lead ourselves to make sure that it was handled in a way that we felt was appropriate. And we made sure to have discussions with all 3 of the operating areas to find out the areas that were similar, but because of operating operations, there were parts that they couldn't come together on. That's why it was decided to go with a same chassis in order to see what kind of economies of scale we could get, but then do individual requirements for the actual winter maintenance of it. And it actually took a lot of work to come together and to actually put it all together to make sure that it was meeting the needs of each of the municipalities before we even posted it. Then when we posted it, we had 10 people take the documents. As you can see from the report, we had 2 that replied, but there were also questions and comments that came in, and all of the municipalities worked together in order to provide appropriate answers. And so it was almost like a trial joint tendering. This was the first one, and we got feedback from our own operations as well as those in West Lincoln and in Grimsby that it actually went quite well. And so in the future, we'll keep on reaching out to them to see if there's more interest, and perhaps other municipalities will join in as well.
Thank you, Terry. That helps. Helps a lot. Trish, who was next? There's 2 people with their hands up, Councillor Bernay and Councillor Mikulik.
Councillor Bernay was next.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Bernay.
Thank you, Chair Ringema. So I was going to go down the same path that Councillor McPherson went. I appreciate Mr. Tasker's comments on that. And I think most people know I've been a big proponent over the last 6 years of procurement and making sure that we do a good job when it comes to purchasing, and shared services and joint tendering are obviously a big part of that. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I think Councillor McPherson's comments were answered quite well by Mr. Tasker, but I guess I'm just trying to understand, maybe without going down a rabbit hole, as to, the report speaks to the fact that we basically have 10 dump trucks running in our fleet, and that we're trying to rotate these through on a timely basis with a lifespan of about 10 years. I guess what I don't understand is what happened in the 4th quarter of 2019 as compared to how this tender seems to be working quite nicely and everybody's high-fiving. What happened in Q4 of 2019 where it was decided it wasn't in the best interest of the town not to continue with the joint tender arrangement that was being administered, as the report says, by another municipality? I'm wondering if someone could comment on that without pointing fingers. That's not what this is about.
Okay, so who should I direct that question to?
Great.
So through the chair, without naming any names, it just, the previous one didn't feel like it was a team effort. Everybody's requirements were just taken and then posted. There wasn't really much discussion about where there would be similarities. It was more so just taking everything and putting it up. It wasn't really working together. And we really thought that was the goal for us anyways, was that actual teamwork and discussion. And even just in the discussions, there was idea sharing and brainstorming. So, I mean, that was really what we were looking for. And that's not how the previous one was working. So we thought it's better to take the reins on it. So that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and I appreciate that comment. I was looking for something down that vein. I just want to make sure that staff is confident that these shared services and joint tendering is going to work. And obviously, what I'm hearing is that our first kick at the can in 2019 wasn't a pleasant experience. We took the time to pause and defer that purchase, and I think now this has been a good experience which we can learn from moving forward. So I'm pleased to hear that, and I'm supporting this purchase of these 2 vehicles. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bernay. I believe Councillor Mikulik is next on the list, and then Mayor Easton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just trying to see where this fits in these purchases, and I think it's great that we're teaming up and partnering with a bulk purchase. I believe that this was a budget item that was approved for $990,000. when we approved this budget item. I'm just wondering, what else was included that are major costs or expenses that are included in that 990,000? Are we going to be able to buy the additional items that are required?
So I think maybe that question should go through to Mr. Tasker.
I believe so.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll try to answer that. I'm sure Terry will have some comment as well, but yeah, the short answer is yes, it fits within the budget, and the tandem unit comes, the specs are for all the pieces and attachments for that machine, as well as the single axles. They come equipped, fully equipped, so that will that budget number will put them on the road and put them in service, hopefully in year and a half when they're delivered.
Okay, so thank you for that answer. And three, Madam Chair. So if we approved a budget amount of 990,000, then we did well. That would be my belief, unless there was other items that were included. When I read the budget, asked there was a dump trailer that was included, but I'm not sure what all, if these three pieces of equipment were lumped into a number of pieces of smaller trivial equipment or not. That's, I guess, where I'm trying to go.
Right, through you, Madam Chair, I can clarify that. So the entire capital purchase was for our 2020 fleet. The one unit in this report was funded from the 2019 budget, and that's the one that was deferred due to the joint tendering we pulled out of last year. So those other items you're talking about, the dump trailer and whatnot, are purchased out of the 2020 budget. So the 980,000 budget you approved included one single axle and one tandem, with the second single axle coming out of the 2019 budget.
Okay, well, I thought I read it as 990, but perhaps I was wrong. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mikulik. And Mayor Easton is next.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I want to speak about the process. CAO and I had a number of conversations with MPP Sam Oosterhoff when this concept came up after the big review was done on Niagara. Of course, who would say that it isn't a good idea? However, there are many, many norms that exist in our municipalities. And I think the process that has been selected here and the number of people, the diversity of people that were involved in it cannot be underestimated. As I said to Sam at the time, the town of Lincoln will definitely engage in shared service agreements, and we will find partners who are like-minded, and they may be around us and they may not. And I think that that is as true now as it was when I said it, because we may find people in other parts of the region that aren't close by who also have an interest, and those groups may get larger and larger. So I really applaud all the work that the staff have done, because, and I'm really pleased that the questioning has gone the way it has, because it's clear that we need to make it clear that we're not expecting miracles to happen. These are very, very difficult relationships where you have a lot of behaviors that have been in place for decades and decades, and now you're starting to turn the ship, and that is not an easy thing to do. So I really want to thank everybody, and I think it will only get easier. We have, I think, quite a number of things that we're doing in a shared service arrangement. Everyone is a little bit different, and they're all getting us where we want to be, and that's to save taxpayers money. So thank you all very much. And 3 to 5% is certainly nothing to be sneezed at. Very good. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't see anybody else getting ready to speak. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet to receive and file report PW 1520 for the purchase of 2 single axle dump plow trucks and 1 tandem axle dump plow truck. Approve the contract award for the purchase of 2 single axle dump plow trucks and 1 tandem axle dump plow truck tender to Metro Freightliner for the amount of $968,998 plus HST, and approve the mayor and town clerk to sign and seal the contract documents on behalf of the municipality. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you, Chair Regima. Please unmute your mics. Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rinchima,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Support.
Thank you, and that motion is carried.
I forgot me.
Oh,
Councillor Russell, my
Yes.
apologies. I must have just been going through the R's. My apologies. And that motion is carried with Councillor Russell.
okay, good. Okay, so we will now consider item 7.4, report PW 09-20 tile drainage loan application. Do members of council have any questions or comments? So I don't see any. This is a good thing that this is being taken advantage of. We don't see this very often. I think maybe I've seen it 3 times in my term of council, maybe twice. So it's good news that somebody's able to take advantage of this program. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva. Receive and file report PW 0920 for the tile drainage loan application. Approve Ridgeview Orchards Limited tile drainage loan in the amount of $50,000 for works at number 4531 Maple Grove Road, legally described as Con 2, part of Lot 6 Con 2, in accordance with the Town of Lincoln Tile Drainage Loan Program policy. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
and Councillor Reimer is abstaining due to his declaration of interest to this item. Councillor Regima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes.
and that motion is carried.
Thank you, Trish. So next on the agenda is a report, and I have an announcement to make. Please be advised that CS 0520 project update, permanent off-leash dog park, that was previously published on the agenda has now been removed from consideration tonight. Our Director of Community Services, Shannon McKay, has some comments to share. Director McKay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to start by saying that I want to assure Council of Community Services commitment to move forward with the permanent off-leash area. However, based on early questions and very valid questions received from Council upon the circulation of the report, we would like to conduct additional community engagement and stakeholder engagement and be able to respond more appropriately to some new questions about a separate and designated area for both small and large dogs, as well as potential sponsorship for the park, and just really ensure that coming out of COVID and as life has returned to a somewhat of a sense of normal, that our community and stakeholders are well aware that we are moving forward with this location as the permanent site. We've received quite a bit of support, as you've seen in the feedback. We've also received a number of posts on social media, but the numbers weren't necessarily high in that stakeholder responses. They were, those in support were very much an overwhelming support, but we do believe that through Niagara SPCA and Humane Society, that through some of our own channels of databases and stakeholders in the community, that we could really ensure that there is more stakeholder engagement and come back to you with a strengthened report. It doesn't change the site selection criteria or anything that you've read in the report, but it will contain much more around that stakeholder engagement and be what I deem to be a much more comprehensive report to council.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McKay. Can I ask a question of clarification, just in case anybody's watching is not clear on this? The existing pilot project, so the site for the existing off-leash dog park will continue until we do this continued public engagement and seeking sponsorship. People
That
will
is correct.
still be able to go there?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I don't see any comments or questions from committee. So we have now concluded the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda. We will now rotate to allow Chair Mikulik to assume the chair at this time for General Business and Finance Committee agenda.
Thank you very much, Chair Rinchema. We have no delegations this evening for the General Business and Finance Committee. Item 8.2 consent agenda. We have no consent agenda items this evening. 8.3 report. We will now consider 8.3 FN-07-20 Safe Restart Agreement Phase 1 Allocation COVID-19 Support. Do any members of council have any questions or comments? There being none.
No,
Sorry, my apologies. We have a
Mr.
couple
C.
hands up. Ms. Sarnicki, who do we have first?
Our CAO would like to, I think, speak first, and then we will go to the hands raised.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could just have council's indulgence, maybe just to take you through the presentation really quickly, and then the entire senior team is here to answer any questions you may have. And this really does dovetail onto the next item, which is a memo on COVID-19. But as it relates to this particular report, this is titled the Safe Restart Agreement, Phase 1 Allocation, COVID-19 Support. As you can see, this is really about the announcement that we received a few weeks ago pertaining to the first phase of our funding allocation for COVID-related expenses. You'll see in the recommendation that we are suggesting council receive this report and approve the use of that first allocation of $565,300 to offset our COVID expenditures and the revenue pressures contained within the report. And the second recommendation is to submit and seek additional funding. Just to remind council, this is a two-part program that the province and the federal government put out. The first 50% that we were to receive, this first allocation, was very much, no questions asked, was meant to cover expenses and was apportioned on a per capita basis, and everybody got an allocation. The second phase is on a need basis. And so there's a requirement to provide a lot of details, a lot of verification for what the need is. You will see as we go through the report that we highlight some municipal expenditures in terms of direct municipal expenditures included in here, and that's everything from the additional staff hours that were required, the increase in facility cleaning and the supplies to do so, the purchase and procurement of PPE that was required, the purchase of technology, to enable us to do a lot of what we're doing right now to continue moving business forward and to ensure we've got business continuity. As we started reopening to outfit our facilities with signage, to outfit our opportunity or to outfit our facilities with glass barriers, as you see in here if you've been to Town Hall, and as well the municipal enforcement hours that were increased based on both police and public health seeking assistance from the local area municipalities. There was, as you move further in the report, every municipality in Niagara, and I would suggest almost across the province, did give a all penalty and interest charge waiver for the first quarter and for the first 3 months as we entered into COVID. And of course, the other element that comprises our challenges or our shortfalls comes from the programming and facility rental revenues. So as council knows, our budget is very finite. It's very specific as it relates to revenues. And we've been doing that over the last number of years in terms of maximizing those revenues. But when we look at the cancellation of hockey early, when we look at our summer programming that only started in the last 6 to 7 weeks, there's been a facility rental revenue decrease. We're also looking at what that looks like for the rest of the year. And for us, a few of us that have discussed budget over the last number of weeks, Chair Russell, Mayor Easton, and Deputy Mayor McPherson, will recall in those conversations we talked about really not knowing as school restarts again what a potential phase 2 looks like. So we've tried to, as you go to page 4 of 6 of this report, look at what have been the expenditures to date up until July 31st, and then expenditures for the remaining part of the year. We've also identified where we've tried to mitigate a lot of those costs, and you'll see identified there the elimination of non-essential travel, conferences, the delay in hiring of staffing positions and the gapping dollars that have come from those, the deferral in hiring non-essential seasonal and summer employment, and then as well some other short-term savings around fuel and just credits and deferred payment arrangements as a result of employee health benefits. We reported to council about a $40,000 to $1,000 savings there. That does total $245,000. And so when you look at the report here, you are seeing approximately $312,000 that will be part of our phase 2 ask of senior levels of government. And those are my final comments. Definitely all of staff are here to answer any questions council may have. We can get into a little more depth should council have any inquiries in terms of just what comprises some of our expenses. But as I highlighted, that's everything from staffing to the signage that was purchased to media and advertising to cleaning supplies and cleaning services. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to answering any questions council may have.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. CAO. Do we have Councillor McPherson first up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and all I wanted to say was thank you to the staff. This has been a report that council has pushed for, for a little while now, and it's here and it's laid out very nicely as to our expected impact for the rest of this calendar year, along with commitment to assess and report on several areas moving forward. So thank you very much, Mike, and to your staff for making the picture so much clearer and showing us exactly what we're looking at. As I read it, if a second wave is realized. So I would assume this is worst case that we're looking at here, and there is the potential for being a better case than what we're looking at. So just a thank you and a acknowledgement to the staff that I know this is not easy to pull together, but we've got it. And, you know, I think I'm pleased. We're pleased. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Do we have any other questions from council?
I see Councillor Rajima.
Councillor Rajima.
Thank you, Chair Mikulik. I know there's been ongoing discussions in work involving modernization as a result of the governmental review that went on a couple of years ago. Mayor Easton referred to that just earlier on tonight. And direction was given from the province for municipalities to review their service delivery and seek efficiencies. I'm wondering what work is going on to that end right now, and where is it happening?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could, let me take a stab at answering the councillor's question. And councillors, I don't know if you've received your agenda yet, but you will be receiving an agenda if you haven't yet. I'm looking on my desk to see if mine's here. But September 8th, we are bringing a corporate systems review report forward, which identifies a number of technological and digitization recommendations forward. That is the long-awaited report on our corporate systems and how they work together. There are some recommendations that very specifically will be aligned with our modernization dollars and won't have a levy impact, and that are very specific to the reporting we're doing with the provincial government in terms of those monies. So a lot of the work around looking at what a digital environment looks like coming out of COVID is definitely there. Councillor, I would also highlight that I think, and it is on the CAO's agenda for our quarterly meetings, and we have another one coming up early in September. We continue to look at shared services and those shared services models. While it will also come out of that corporate systems review, cybersecurity in terms of IT is one of those things we're looking at. We talked about procurement from a legal standpoint. We have had a joint procurement exercise and hired a solicitor together with the town of Grimsby. I won't take Mr. Deaney's theme, but he is working on an MOU with a neighboring municipality as it relates specifically to tourism. So there's a number of shared services opportunities. I think to highlight the mayor's comment earlier, there's a lot of things we're doing. It's a matter of packaging those and continuing to communicate those models. But I would say the biggest one that you'll hear from us within the next couple of weeks is around our digital and corporate systems strategy.
A lot of irons on the fire. Thank you.
I did happen to pick up the agenda and I did take a look at that report. I think it's about 110 pages long. So councillors will have plenty of reading to do in looking at that one. Councillor Rajima, do you have any further question? Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Well, very good. Then we certainly appreciate the numbers and the data and the efforts that are being made in addressing this unusual, unprecedented virus that we've been experiencing, and funding, that we've received from the province is very much appreciated, and we're hoping for more. One thing that I would ask is, early at the onset of this virus, there was the possibility of looking at, deferring projects or, the bids process, the tendering, and I was thinking that there might be some savings with regards to tenders and some favorable billing or some favorable bidding moving forward with projects as opposed to holding off. And I'm wondering if that has been shown anywhere, or is it possible to see those savings if there were any in a separate line?
To you, Mr. Chair, and to all of council. I could probably highlight for you that I think anecdotally, a number of our projects, I think, have been favorable in terms of the budget set versus the amount that they came in at. I don't know where the remaining projects through the year will be. There is kind of an ebbing and flowing and a toing and froing that goes along with it. But definitely something that we can share with council as we reach kind of year end. And I know Terry's already working on something like that as it's come up before Chair McCulloch.
Okay, that would be the only line that I've not seen on this on the savings incurred during this pandemic. Okay, then we'll move right along. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Ringema. Receive and file FN-07-20 Safe Restart Agreement Phase 1 allocation, COVID-19 support, and approve the use of Lincoln's $565,300 allocation to offset COVID-19 expenditures and revenue pressures in 2020, and direct staff to submit a report to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing seeking additional funding through Phase 2, funding for additional municipal pressures. I will now ask our clerk to call the vote.
Thank you, Chair McCulloch. Please unmute your mic. Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor McCulloch,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Ringema,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes.
and that motion is carried.
Okay, we will now consider item 8.4 memorandum COVID-19 update. Similar to the previous report, however, I know that CAO Mike Kokopoulos may have some comments to this as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thanks again for the opportunity to speak to this memo. A lot of this information we share with council fairly regularly, so I won't go through it other than to highlight and acknowledge the work of our recovery team, our EOC team, and the senior team, the senior leadership team, in terms of pulling all this together and at the same time continuing with council's work while also addressing COVID and the COVID responses. I will take you though to the last page of the memo that talks about future reopening plans, because I think that's where council's interest probably lies. And so you'll see 4 key points there. The first 3, definitely the first 2, speaking about community services and our work that's going on right now, both in terms of winter recreational and cultural programming, as well as meeting with ICE user groups. A lot of this, I think, preliminary work is important, especially as we head into what may be an unknown few months. So that's really what we're looking at now. We're looking at what programs are possible, both outdoor and indoor, as it relates to physical distancing. And if we were to regress to a previous reopening phase, what that would look like. So just a lot of preparatory work. Item 3 in that future reopening speaks to where I think we'll have some questions, and I'll let our clerk speak to kind of our reopening plans and the holding of electronic meetings and a potential hybrid approach that we're looking at. And the last one focuses on something that's coming in the next week, and that is our crossing guards and school reopening, which for a lot of us will be a little bit of the bellwether in terms of what starts to happen and do we find ourselves entering into possible increase in numbers of infected individuals in our community and all that comes with that, which I'm hoping is not the case. But I'll leave my comments to that. I don't know if Madam Clerk has some comments to make around reopening, or any of the other senior staff want to speak specifically to items highlighted here, but just wanted to share that with council.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you through the chairs to all of council. So it really does depend on the mandatory mask bylaw and what that looks like for the region as a whole. As you know, we haven't lifted the declaration of emergency order, nor have most 444 municipalities. And as noted, potential second wave that has been mentioned in previous conversations has also influenced the decision for most municipalities to not consider opening up their chambers for meetings that are open to the public. So most municipalities like Ottawa, Brampton, Richmond Hill, Markham, Waterloo, all of the Waterloo regional municipalities that I'm aware of are not meeting in person until the new year. In fact, I was just told today that Guelph has committed to not meeting in person until March of 2021. So this is all part and parcel to not knowing really what this looks like as of yet, and to ensure the protection of residents as well as the staff and council that are meeting in the chambers right now. I do know that there is a handful of municipalities that are looking to have a hybrid model should that become available for a mix of council remotely attending a meeting as well as being in person. So that is currently, as we mentioned earlier tonight, that is something that we are looking into. And as mentioned earlier in the planning document related to COVID and Bill 197, Bill 197 has made it possible for municipalities to have on a permanent basis for electronic meetings. So this has allowed public participation to increase. So now not only it used to be only allowed in person. Now it can be, if we do have a hybrid model, it could be something in person, or perhaps maybe by telephone, electronic, or written. So this has provided for more participation by the public. But right now, I don't have a clear picture on what the hybrid model looks like until we hear back from our third-party provider, which is coming shortly. But that is the picture right now for most of Ontario municipalities, and that they are not looking to move to in-person meetings until well after the new year.
Okay. Do members of council, anybody have any questions for either the CAO or the clerk? I see a hand up, Councillor Renchema.
Thank you, Chair Mikulek. Yeah. I'm sorry, Julie, you might have just said this, but I think I missed it. But if we do go to a hybrid model, this would allow, the advantage of that is that some may be staying home, some may be in council chambers. You can meet social distancing requirements, and you can still allow for public participation in the chamber, which would be a positive step for many. Is that right? Is that?
Right. I mean, that would depend on, well, it really does depend on what that looks like. So again, with the mandatory bylaw mask in place, we have to take that into consideration. We've already equipped council chambers with social distancing measures. So we've reduced the gallery capacity seating. We've also put in various measures in place, such as the plastic barriers in between council. So it could be that, depending on what that scenario looks like, and there's very well, quite a bit of scenarios that we could entertain. It's just what's best, and what can we ensure, what safe measures can we ensure for those who are attending. And so I just don't have that clear picture yet until I hear back from what that technology requirements are for a hybrid model.
Okay, because I think I can't speak for everybody, but I've heard concerns that, we're carrying on and great, we're doing quite well having meetings remotely, but the issue is those that want to come and speak, for example, at planning meetings, and maybe they don't have, they're not comfortable with technology, public members of the public. Maybe they're not comfortable with technology. Maybe they don't have access to technology. Maybe the whole thing is just really intimidating. So if we can move forward in a way that allows public participation safely and in person, that would be a good step.
And that is one of the, sorry, through to the chair, to the counselor, that is one of the scenarios that we will be looking at with the hybrid model as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome. I saw that Mr. Kirkopoulos had his hand up. Did you have something further?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could, and I think Julie just touched on it at the end there, but I think the hybrid model that probably could happen the quickest, is very much getting council in council chambers. Some municipalities are doing that. It's when you interject the public into the mix that sometimes becomes a slightly more complex case and some apprehension. Not to say that it's not doable by any means. I think we can do it. It just may mean not everybody's in council chambers. Maybe people are waiting outside. So, I think it'll be a while before we get back to a full process like we had before, but there's definitely a lot of incremental steps like getting council inside the chambers, that can happen sooner rather than later. And so I think there's a number of options around that hybrid piece that we can look at. And at the end of the day, we're in council's hands.
Thank you very much. So Nikki, I think we had Councillor Pachariva next.
That's correct, Chair Mikulik.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, through you, Chair Mikulik, to our CAO. With respect to the crossing guards, the report says that they're going to be at the same key crossings, so that's a good thing. We don't want to confuse people by moving the crossings, but are we working with the school board to develop protocols around this, or is this our bailiwick? So in order to maintain social distancing, are there going to be markings put on the sidewalks, or can you kind of take me through that, Mr. Kirkopoulos? How's that going to occur? Because in normal times, you would see a wall of kids running to the crosswalk and crossing en masse. So how are we going to maintain physical distancing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. So, councillor, I think it's a great question. I know in front of schools, there's delineated signage on the pavement that delineates where kids will stand. But I think if it hasn't happened already, and I don't know if Kathleen and or Matt do have an update. I know in our manager of bylaws absence, Matt is filling that role somewhat, and our crossing guards report through there. But I would suggest that if we haven't had those conversations with the school board, we will. But I could be wrong, and maybe they've been had already. But I know in front of schools where most of our crosswalks and most of our crossings happen, there are lines that are there. But in terms of additional training, I don't know, Matt, if you've got any additional comments.
Thanks, Mike, and through you, Chair. Yeah, I have started some dialogue with some of the schools just about how we're going to be proceeding, but we haven't gotten too far down the line yet. I think they've been focused too on their own practices internal as well, but I'll be sure to provide council with more of an update when I know a little bit more, but I have initiated those conversations.
Mr. Bruder, Councillor Pachariva?
Yeah, okay. So having said that, I'm thinking because, out last night walking, there's the crosswalk at the corner of King and William Street. So it's not directly in front of the school, and there doesn't seem to be anything there. So just, want to make sure that we dot all the I's and cross all the T's and get those social distancing markings in place, because some of them are a bit of a ways away, and as you get away from that I guess, kind of oversight, things can happen. So just, look forward to that.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment. I was reminded that it's Jacqueline in our HR department who I think has started a little bit of that training as well with our crossing guards and all of our staff as it relates specifically to some of the health and safety protocols.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very interesting question, Counselor. I don't know how many kids line up at a crosswalk. That line could be quite long, where safety could be an issue should it continue on beyond the driveway or that sort of thing. So,
Well, and that's back to our conversation last week, where we need to say to Councillor Foster at the region, we need those lit overhead crosswalks as soon as possible to help aid our crossing guards. So, thank you.
thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just would like to weigh in and say that I am firmly in favor of moving back into council chambers. I think, what we saw here tonight with Councillor Timmers and the challenges that she had, and I've personally had them myself, where I've been running around the house trying to find the internet and missing important pieces of the meeting. But I think more importantly, I think we're ready. I think, as Julie pointed out, the room is ready. I think we're all of the mindset now and understand what the COVID protocol is. We understand that we're walking into the town hall with masks on, and we're not lingering, and chit-chatting, afterwards, that we're having our meeting and we're walking out. And I'd actually go so far as to suggest a hybrid model that had delegations come into council and those that wanted to view the meeting to go on YouTube, so that we have those people. And I'll tell you, Councilor Mikulik and I heard loud and clear as a result of the council or the Committee of Adjustment meeting this past week, that people are apprehensive. They're not comfortable delegating on Zoom or delegating on some kind of virtual format. So, the sound of this to me is concerning me, that it sounds like, well, we'll get to that, and there's communities that are going till March, and let's not rush into this. I really think that our meetings are more productive in person. And I think that being there in that room with all of the plastic up and all of the proper protocol distance, that we can have a more effective meeting than we do over Zoom. And I think about those delegations, particularly when it comes to planning, that if they were to come in with face mask and sit down in one of those designated seats that I think we've done a very nice job designated where you sit and where you don't, and they were then able to walk to the podium, take their face mask off, they could state their position. Yeah, we'd have to clean that area after they left, until the next delegation went up. But I think it just gives them that opportunity to feel more comfortable in front of council. So I'm not, supportive of waiting. I think the sooner the better that we move back into council chambers. And again, I think we're ready. I think the room is ready, and I think the attitude is there that we will observe COVID protocol. So that's my thoughts on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Excellent points. We'll move on to Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Chair Mikulik. I was going to say a lot of the same things that Councillor McPherson just said. So this meeting tonight has been extremely disjointed for me. I was offline for well over an hour. So I missed large portions of the meeting, which I find very, I'm not very happy about that. It's very unproductive from my end to be, and many of us have had connectivity issues. I think it is time to figure out how to move back. I think it could be a hybrid. We could have some people who are back and some people who choose not to be back. So, that would limit how many people are in the horseshoe as well. So I think it could be a hybrid. And if there are less people online, we probably wouldn't have as many connectivity issues as well. So I'm all for a hybrid model. I think everyone has their own level of comfort and where they want to be at this point. But I'm willing to work with the majority of council and whatever we decide collectively. I think our team needs to be back together for communication. It's totally different communicating on here. So I'll leave it up to other comments and see what the rest of council feels. But I'm willing to work with whatever the majority decides on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Do we have any other comments, questions, thoughts? Councillor Rinchella?
Thank you, Chair Mikulik. So having heard that, it sounds like at least some of us are willing to look at a hybrid model of some kind, and I would support that as well. But so I guess what would be our next steps toward that? I know that we're looking at changing our procedural bylaw to meet the Bill 197. But that's down the road, I think. So what can we do to take steps toward making the decision of whether or not we are going to move forward with a hybrid model or not? I saw a reference to a doodle poll coming out at some point in some emails. So that's my question. What's our next steps to make that decision?
I can leave that up. I can direct that question to our clerk, Julie Kirklos.
Well, we already are looking at some various options, and we're already have our third-party provider looking into the hybrid model. So I'm awaiting what that looks like right now. So that's already in the works. As soon as we have that information, I would be happy to provide that to council. I understand that technology is not always foolproof. So, we've each probably had our own situations happen to us during a meeting, but I know that just for the utmost concern, I think for all of us is the safety and well-being of anybody who's attending town hall, and to make sure that we have the correct procedures and provisions in place, and that is all of our concern. Like I said, we're looking into the hybrid model, and that is coming. It shouldn't be much longer, and as soon as we have that information, there will be I'd be happy to provide a report to council to update on the various scenarios. We also have to take into consideration some of the planning notices that have gone out, as we have 30 days notice, and right now those do say electronic meetings right now. So we do have to take into consideration some communication that has already been communicated to residents, and making sure that we can provide some timely updates.
Okay. Thank you. And that's great. So that actually gives us some time. Yeah, those planning notices have already gone out. So it is what it is. And that gives us time to get it right. And by the way, you were freezing while you were talking. So we're all suffering tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands. I'm very similar with the mindset. I just have a question. So correct me if I'm wrong, we're in a state of emergency. However, that has no bearing on our ability whether or not we can have in-council chamber meetings. Ms. Kirklow? Ms. Kirklow?
I think she got cut off or is not connected anymore. I think.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Uh, can you just your question? Chair Miklick, it kind of went out on me a little bit, or my internet connection has been
Councillor, Chair Mikulik, or
connected.
Should I? Okay.
Chair Mikulik, why don't I answer that question? Because I do know that other municipalities, at least one in particular, has met in person during the emergency declaration. So nothing in the emergency declaration precludes us in any way from meetings. So the two are not contingent on one another. I think if I heard your question correct, was does the declaration of emergency mean we cannot meet in person? And no, technically that's not the case.
Okay. So thank you for that answer. Just, I see people going to church. Oh, hold on, Councillor Russell. I'll save that thought. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Miklick, through you to council and to Madam Clerk, if she is back up and running again. Again, just one, again, maybe a little point of timing. I know that Madam Clerk already mentioned that we already do have kind of like a month leeway because of the announcements going out. I might just suggest that because there are a number of people that have kids and will be exposed to new bubbles, new germ pools, and we do have some vulnerable people on council and in the chambers, that we at least wait, again, a good 4 or 6 weeks after school starts, just to see if there are any second waves starting from that, which again, I think that's one of the precursors that a lot of people are waiting to see if that's one of the stepping stones. So before we start sending out notices towards the end of this month about October, or sorry, in September about October, we just kind of give that little bit of break to see exactly what that impact is going to be. If there is any, I don't think there will be, but I'm an optimist. That's just my little 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Councillor Russell. So where I was going was, I'm seeing people going to church. I'm seeing people going shopping. School is going, many kids are going back to school. I feel as though we've taken extra precautions to ensure public safety within Town Hall. And I want to get back to Town Hall as soon as possible and have in-person meetings. The Councillor McPherson had brought up with regards to the Committee of Adjustment meeting. And I also think back to the meeting, the ECDEV and planning meeting, where we had a delegation, and these delegations are on the phone. They're uncomfortable with the technology. Me, myself, I know personally as a counselor, I'm not seeing the expression on the people's faces. I'm not feeling what they're feeling. I'm hearing a lot from residents, but I'm not seeing them in person. I'm not feeling them the same way I would feel them as if I saw them in person. Even I don't even know if we've had a resident submit any feedback via video. For whatever reason, it's gone to audio, and I think that we need to get back to in-person council meetings sooner rather than later. And those who feel at risk or concerned about safety, they will be able to make a delegation if we have this hybrid model, and they will be able to watch on YouTube live. And those are my comments, and I'm just trying to, if I could, to either Ms. Julie Kirklos or Mike Kirklos, what would be the procedure on council's part to direct staff to expedite or to, to investigate a sooner? I don't feel comfortable waiting till next March. Let's put it that way.
So through the chair to council, you won't have to wait till next March to have a decision. We will be hearing back from our third party provider on what this looks like for us in terms of a cost scenario, as well as what is capable in terms of technology for our chambers. So that is something that we should have, and I would say probably before the end of this week. So I just don't have that information readily for tonight for you. The other thing is that right now, anybody can watch our proceedings on a live webcast right now. So that is currently happening, and that has been happening since we went electronically. We made sure that that was the case. And so, again, people can submit written. That hasn't changed. That hasn't changed even when we were meeting in person. The only thing that has changed is that we are not physically in the chambers. But it has been made loud and clear this evening that council is of the mindset that they would like to get back into the chambers, and whatever that looks like in terms of a hybrid model, and whatever that looks like in terms of the public participation. So that is something that myself and the CAO are committed to looking into a little further. And hopefully I didn't cut out this time.
Mr. Chair.
It's been a challenging evening.
It has.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add on to the clerk's comments and suggest that I think our goal would be, there's a committee of the whole on September 8th. What if we bring a report forward that lays out what coming back to town hall looks like? I think you've heard that 30-day kind of time horizon that Kathleen shared with both Julia and I in terms of those applications, and I suggest maybe that's something we work towards. But why don't we come back on September 8th with a report that lays out what reopening looks like, and if there's anything that is required. And then it also affords us an opportunity to get some details, because I know there were some pictures that were sent around by clerks and CAOs relative to masks. And so are masks worn? Are they not worn? Some councils wear masks, some don't. So let us come back with a report on the 8th that lays that out. And I think we can work with that 30-day time limit that we've identified from a planning standpoint. It also gives us a time to look like what school reopening next week looks like, Councillor Russell, and just to see what numbers start looking like even in day 1, 2, and 3 as that happens. So I think that 30-day window gives us a good time horizon, gives council something definitive to communicate and work towards, and gives us a chance to put some stuff in a report to bring in front of you.
I think I appreciate that answer. That's I like that answer. I think that makes a lot of sense. The mask, we do have those within council chambers, those, those plexiglass partitions. The masks are to be worn when physical distancing is challenged or, difficult. However, for councilors, I think that we're in a pretty safe spot where we are if we'd be sitting in our chairs. So any further questions, comments? All right, then remember, there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Mayor Easton. Receive and file memorandum COVID-19 update for information. I will now ask the clerk to call the vote.
Thank you. Please unmute your mics as I call out your name. Counselor Brunei,
Yes.
Counselor McPherson,
Yes.
Counselor Mikulik,
Yes.
Counselor Pachariva,
Yes.
Counselor Reimer,
Yes.
Counselor Njima,
Yes.
Counselor Russell,
Yes.
Counselor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes.
and that motion is carried.
Okay, we have now concluded the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. Moving on to item 9, confidential items. We have one confidential item for consideration this evening. Our CAO has some remarks to provide prior to moving into.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair Mikulik. I think you have an old copy of the script. So we have no other confidential items this evening.
Okay, I apologize for that. Then I will go to item 10, committee remarks. Do we have any committee remarks? Oh, board lit up. I lost track. Ms. Sarnicki, who's first?
Counselor Brunei is first.
Counselor Brunei?
Thank you, Chair Mikulik. I just wanted to take a few minutes just to bring council, as well as any of those people sitting at home tonight listening to our committee meeting, let them know that I had the opportunity to sit in on this was an AMO delegation that was postponed during our AMO conference, virtual conference, and rescheduled to last Friday, August 28th. This was a half an hour, a 30-minute discussion with the Minister of Labor, Training, and Skills Development. And this was a delegation that was spearheaded by Mayor Easton and our EDO, Paul Deaney. Had this opportunity to sit in on it with Deputy Mayor McPherson, as well as Councillor Mikulik. Joining us on this delegation were Dr. Don Sear, who is the chair of the Niagara Industrial Association, as well as belongs to he's a professor at the Department of Finance at Brock University, as well as the vice chair, Aaron Tisdale, from the Niagara Industrial Association. And Mr. Tisdale is one of the principal owners of Girardi Machine Shop in St. Catharines, has been in business for 75 years. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate this delegation. I've been involved in a lot of delegations over the years, and I don't know what it is specifically about this one, whether it's the stars were aligned and the timing was perfect, but I came away at the end of this discussion thinking that we had hit a home run. This was a delegation to support our skilled trades, not only here in Lincoln, but throughout Niagara, as it pertains to the closing of the Ontario College of Trades. And when we spoke to Minister McNaughton, we had an opportunity to give our case, and Dr. Sear and Mr. Tisdale did a wonderful job articulating that on behalf of the association. And, I really believe that the minister came away with understanding not only what we are articulating, but what he's already aware of. The timing was perfect. The day before it, he made an announcement of $43 million to the youth in the skilled trades. And just some of the discussion that he brought to the table, one of the things that really was a takeaway for me was he admitted, as he goes around the province, talked to many, many parents. And the comments he's heard from parents is, my kids they know how to become a lawyer and how to become a doctor, but they don't know how to become a carpenter and electrician. And that really was something that I will recall moving forward. And I think through Chair Bradley, who he's got connections with Minister McNaughton that go back to his days when he was a Liberal at Queen's Park, and Mr. McNaughton was bringing his water. There's a long history there when he was working at Queen's Park as a student in grade 8. And I believe that not only have we brought to the forefront what's happening in Niagara, but we get this across Ontario. And I just wanted to kudos to Mayor Easton for really spearheading this and bringing these people on board. Like I say, I think it was a really, really good delegation and one which I think we will continue forward as we go ahead with this discussion on skilled trades in Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Brunet. It was an excellent meeting. It was particularly close to home for me, being a tradesperson as well, and to be able to participate and voice some thoughts that I had from a firsthand perspective. I thought it was very impressive. Ms. Sarnicki, who do we have next?
Chair Mikulik, we have Mayor Easton next.
Mayor Easton.
Mr. Chairman, I want to speak in general terms about AMO, and therefore I request to speak last.
Okay, we can honor that request.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
No worries. Who do we have next?
Councillor Russell.
Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the CAO and to staff. I know recently the mayor has been a big proponent of making sure that speeding, safety, and pedestrian traffic is an ongoing topic on our committee meetings going forward, and to bring some emphasis back to that, as we are getting a lot of concerns from residents. So I just wanted to bring to the attention to staff, again, two major concerns, one being, and again, it's been talked about, again, both wards, Ward 1 and Ward 2 councillors amongst their residents, being the pedestrian traffic or pedestrian safety at the corner of Ontario and King being the first. There's been a lot of questions raised about what we can do further to protect our residents as they are crossing that with speeding, with truck traffic. And I know there are some initiatives going forward on that. I know that Councillor Foster has recently given some updates on some work that was to be done over the course of the summer that was delayed because of the pandemic. So that's the first topic. And the second one is there's tends to be a lot of reports of speeding on Green Lane, in particular in front of Senator Gibson's school. So just wondering if there's anything that we can do maybe to open up some discussions or start taking some sensitive data about what is happening on that stretch of location, especially as school is going back, and if we are going to be socially distancing the kids on some of those crosswalks, is there anything we can do to protect them going forward as well?
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Do we want to, Mr. Kirkopoulos, do you want to comment quickly, or do we want to move along?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think it's an appropriate enough topic that I'll just provide some quick comments. The councillor is right. There is some crosswalk painting and other things that are going to take place the week of September 8th. We're also coming forward with a report at that committee with an update as requested by both Chair Rajima, Vice Chair Brunet, and Mayor Easton on the traffic safety measures that have been taking place, and that will be a constant update and a constant agenda item on the agenda moving forward. And Director Graham has put that report forward and can take council through that at that particular committee. But again, Councillor, I'll definitely highlight with our new staff sergeant the issues around Green Lane. I'll send them a message tonight. They've been very responsive. Whether we hear issues at St. Vladimir in terms of the park, they're definitely using some different social media ways to get that information out and definitely adding it to their patrol. So they've been very responsive. So definitely we'll take both those two back and there'll be more information that staff will be sharing at the next committee of the whole.
Thank you.
One thing I can say is Director Dave Graham, he does take notes. He does pay attention to the things that we say, and he will look into this for us at the next opportunity. Who do we have next? Trish?
Hi, Chair Mikulik. Quick procedural matter. It's 10 o'clock. As per the town's procedural bylaw, in order to extend the meeting past 10 p.m., I have to call for a 2/3 vote. I'm going to now call the vote. Please unmute your mics. Counselor Brunei,
Yes.
Counselor McPherson,
Yes.
Counselor Mikulik,
Yes.
Counselor Pachariva,
Yes.
Counselor Reimer,
Yes.
Counselor Njima,
Yes.
Counselor Russell,
Yes.
Counselor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
motion is carried. Thank you, Mayor Easton. And so next we have Counselor Rajima on the list to speak.
Okay. Counselor Rajima?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is through to Director Graham, and if he doesn't, it's a question. If he's not prepared to answer tonight, that's fine. But I wanted to bring it up because I think I had discussed it with him in the past. And a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of agendas ago, there was a bylaw that came forward for Ashby Street in Ward 2 for the corner and it was particularly regarding parking in that area. And it had the effect of preventing parking in front of the mailbox. I'm not sure if that was that was one of the effects of the bylaw, but that wasn't the only purpose of the bylaw. There was a number of things going on there. But that reminded me that in the past, I think it was Councillor Russell had received a concern from somebody in the community that had accessibility issues and wasn't able to access their mailbox because somebody was parking in front of it. So I think we did something about that. I think we might have signed it. But I had spoken to Director Graham at one point. I'm wondering, is that something that we want to move forward with throughout the municipality? Look at preventing parking in front of the mailbox for that reason, for accessibility reasons. Look at preventing that or prohibiting parking in front of the mailbox. So through to Director Graham, if he's prepared to discuss that at this time, or if he wants to address it at a future meeting.
Dr. Graham?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. I mean, that's a great question that you've raised. I would say definitely it's something that we need to maybe find a easier way to respond to when we have concerns. You know, there are situations in the municipality where it isn't an issue, and then there's other situations where it is. So I think I'd like to take that back with staff, maybe look at, you know, how we could, is there any amendments we could do to the overall traffic bylaw to assist in these situations? Currently, we have to, you know, if there is a concern, we have to create a specific bylaw for that location. Maybe we can look at a more efficient way of implementing no parking restrictions in front of mailboxes if it is a problem. You know, there are some locations where, you know, maybe in more dense areas where the mailbox is primarily accessed by, you know, sidewalks and things like that, you know, maybe parking is okay in front near mailbox. So I'm not sure, you know, it's perhaps maybe a broad brush, every mailbox you can't park in front of it. You know, you do have to look at some of the specific locations, but yeah, I think it's definitely something we'd like to take back to see, you know, can we improve our bylaw and our policies to maybe help us respond to these situations moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I don't see any other hands. I'm going to leave it to Mayor Easton. Mayor Easton, some thoughts, comments?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to speak in general terms about our experience regarding the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference, which, as many of our citizens know, that we attend each year. And Mr. Chairman, I think it's fair to say that with the help of staff and their government relations expertise, that we were able to make, I believe, what is the largest number of delegations that we've had, and each of them was quite powerful in their own right. I would say as well that the experience of working with other municipalities is something that we have allowed to grow. It's something we have encouraged. And so that when we do attend, we're coming with common voices. And I believe that these are becoming more common. We were certainly leaders in this area. I just want to quickly cover for the benefit of the observing public that we met with the Ministry of Infrastructure to talk about funding opportunities for Jordan Lyons Park. This is what we do, ladies and gentlemen, when we attend these delegations. We're there to look for funding on your behalf. On behalf of important infrastructure projects in our municipality. We attended and delegated to the Ministry of Finance in regard to the alcohol modernization, supporting the Ontario craft wineries and new alcohol and taxation strategies. Not something that we deal with every day within the municipality, but extremely important for our colleagues in grape and wine, the breweries and distilleries. We met with the Minister of Transportation regarding Prudhome's, and as it relates to the Ministry of Transportation lands and a number of infrastructure projects that are related to this 10-year and $1.2 billion project. We met again with the Minister of Transportation as West Lincoln, Grimsby, Lincoln, and the region of Niagara on the Niagara Escarpment Crossing. 7 years, ladies and gentlemen, 7 years that there have been delegations before a tender will finally be let on the environmental assessment in 2021. And that first request was made by Mayor Bill Hodgson of Lincoln and Mayor Bob Bentley in 2014. And it has taken us 7 years, or it will have taken us 7 years to have reached that point of the environmental assessment tender being issued. We also noted in the meeting that there's absolutely nothing in terms of a north-south crossing from the Red Hill right through to the border. That service employment land will be above the escarpment in the future. And this is absolutely essential. The region are very supportive now. We have no political barriers in our way. And the financial sustainability in creating new haul routes and getting trucks out of our downtowns is absolutely essential for all of us. We met on West Lincoln Memorial Hospital again, as we have, I believe this is the 6th year we have delegated on West Lincoln Memorial Hospital with the Ministry of Health. Joint meetings again with Grimsby, West Lincoln, Lincoln, and the Hamilton Health Sciences Corporation. Things are very favorable in this area. Everyone has worked extremely hard, and we have the support of the Premier and our MPP, Sam Oosterhoff, as well as Minister Elliott. We met with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. Lincoln and Niagara-on-the-Lake met with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food on land use for cannabis. And we also made points this year, whereas we had not in the past, on the farm practice aspects of cannabis and the high standards that we expect those producers to follow. The Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture, we met with that ministry. We met then, as Councillor Brunet and Councillor Mikulik have mentioned, Minister of Labor and Training. And I believe this really was quite a highlight because we really stepped out of our normal comfort zone and took on something that I think is so extremely important. And we're hoping that we will encourage our other municipal councillor colleagues to get involved in the incentivization of the skilled trades. So to all of council, I want to publicly state that everyone had a voice that was participating. Everyone performed beautifully. Our presentations, our delegations were very, very strong, very, very focused. And I also want to thank CAO Mike Kirkopoulos, as well as our Economic Development Officer, Paul Deani, for your support throughout. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I felt it was a very successful year this year at AMO, despite the change in format. I see no other hands up. I wanted to close out on a nice note with regards. Earlier this week, I received a phone call from a concerned resident regarding ICE and booking rentals and this sort of thing. And I just want to give kudos. I want to give a shout out to Community Services for their handling of that situation. There's been a lot of anxiety amongst residents as far as what we can, what we can't do, either as a resident or as a council. And I thought the communication that was displayed by the Community Services, and I'm not going to identify any particular member of Director McKay's crew, because I think they all work as a team, and I think everyone at Town Hall works as a team in communicating current events, what's going on, and how we're addressing situations. So I just, that was a specific, nice little story that I heard. And with that, there being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned at 10:08 p.m. Ms. Zarnicki, anything else?
Nothing else. I'll now be stopping the live YouTube stream. Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Have a safe
all.
drive.
Good night, everyone.